question number one, I guess, because that you got signed, I think that last time you said about in 2015, something like that. You went through being signed once. Well, you were indie, were signed once. This other era in between, signed with Dame, or it was just a project. You weren't officially signed. You were still indie. So at the end of the road, not the complete end, but at that point, like you signed again. What made someone who had been independent for so long and already seen both sides sign at that point?
I don't think being signed to a label or signed. So I signed in 2013 or 20, yeah, around 20, from 2013 to 2014, I signed a production deal I signed with a production company, a 360 deal. Now, people think, 360 deals are terrible. It's the worst thing in the world, but I don't agree with that. I believe it just all depends on what your intent is and what you're trying to do. At that point in time, I had put out the album with Dame. I had released like 2 mixtapes, and it garnered the attention of a professional basketball player, Amar'e Stoudemire, who played for the New York Knicks.
How dope.
And Amar'e had a record label that he was like resurrecting, or you know what I mean, putting back out there. And he was like, hey, through a mutual friend, he was like, this guy Locksmith, I would love for him to be the next, the first artist off this new label. I had a talk with him, a great dude. We vibed. Obviously, he's making hundreds of millions of dollars at this time playing for the New York Knicks. I'm staying up in the penthouse, life is good. I'm like, yo, we about to get it, He hires a firm to come in and basically as a consultant to help me put together a project. So the whole goal was to put together a project, a mixtape, quote unquote, because it was all original music. Put together this project and develop enough buzz for Locksmith to get him signed. So immediately, beginning of 2013, or maybe it was the end of 2012, signed the contract. He brings in this team. We start putting together these songs. I go out to North Carolina. I'm working with NAIF Wonder. They put me on tour with Joe Budden. So things are moving. I'm like, okay, this is a great opportunity. We haven't even put out the mixtape yet, but I'm networking. I'm building with other artists, and it's great. I'm learning things. I'm seeing things from a different perspective, and we actually do end up getting a deal on the table through Sony, through Sony, and I sit down and have a meeting with them. But a little bit of what happened was the reason why that situation is ended, because whenever you sign with like a basketball player or somebody who's not really in the business, they have their own stuff going on. You know what I mean? They're playing. If they get injured, the energy around the whole camp is kind of like, oh, he's injured, or these things are happening. If they lose in the playoffs, like it's a lot of different elements that are there. And when things are going good, it's great. But when things start going down, and this happened to be, nobody knew it, but this was at the tail end of Amar'e's career, So he ended up not even being in New York, ended up, I think, getting traded and going somewhere else. And the relationship that I had with the production company, they were kind of like, I felt like the company that he was utilizing didn't really have my best interest at heart. I felt like they were just kind of doing what they were doing to utilize the situation to build relationships outside of what I was doing, So I kind of recognized that, but I still had a deal on the table, and which is what our goal, but they weren't able to take the album that we had because they were like, oh, well, this album, we're going to have to redo this whole album because you got samples. Because, we have like Ninth Wonder and all this stuff. So it's tons of samples on the album. You know what I mean? And so they were like, okay, we're going to have to redo this album. And I was like, well, this is going to be a completely different album. This is going to take a whole nother process. So what happened was that contract expired. So like I said, every deal that you do is cool, but you just have to know what you're getting in. So when I signed that deal, the deal was that we have a 360 deal and that deal is in place until you get signed. And then I'll still be signed to them, or until the 18 months runs out, then I'm free to do whatever I wanted. So once the 18 months ran off, I was free to do whatever I wanted. mind you, I'm still working on multiple albums. I'm doing his album that he's paying for, but I'm also I'm working my butt off and I'm recording more songs on my own. So I recorded another album on my own because I already was preparing, like, if this thing doesn't go great, I'm still going to be able to continue doing what I'm doing and building more relationships with all the people that I meet along the way. So that was kind of how that went, you know?
Yeah, I hear like a idea of constantly planning for the next move or figuring out how to make the best out of this situation while also figure out if this situation doesn't work, where do I go? Because as you've talked about multiple situations, you've kind of thought about incentives. That's what it sounded like, of the people involved, right? What people are focusing on. And you said that basically, like, yo, these people don't care about me. These people they just want to work with Amar'e, and this is my way to work with Amar'e, and then flip the relationships of working with Amar'e. That's what it sounded like.
Because he got bread, you know, Amar'e has money, you know, he's paying all these people.
Yeah. So, and you kind of touched on it, like one reason in terms of like where their life is focused. But whether it's a basketball player or people who are not in music in general, what are some more pros and cons of working with people who like are not like music industry people in general?
Well, you know what? Back then, I didn't have as much knowledge as I have now. You know, obviously that was 10 years ago. So I was still very ignorant to a lot of things and how the music business was. Like now, if I knew what I knew now, maybe I would have stayed in that deal because I would have known how to utilize it better. And a lot of artists, you know, are not big enough to say that. Like, artists, at the end of the day, we hold our own destiny in our hands. You know, the decisions that we make when we decide to be stubborn about things, or we decide to, you have to be able to deal with the consequences, whatever company that you're dealing with. And if I would have known the information that I have now, if I would have known back then I could have probably finessed the situation, and not in a bad way, but like massaged it in a way where it made sense for everyone and I can make it work. But back then I was like, yo, they're doing this wrong, I'm out of here. Or, you know, like, and even Amar'e, like, he probably would have been like, at some point in time, he was just like, I don't want to deal with this stuff. I've already got my own stuff going on in my career. I'm gonna step back, you know? So I probably could have handled the situation in a different way. Not to say that I regret it, because I just still learned from it and I was able to come into what I'm coming. And he actually reached back out to me not that long ago. It was like, yo, Lock, I love what you're doing. I see any help you need, let's get it cracking, you know? So, but yeah, I just feel like, you know, the information I could have, you have to understand, like, your destiny is in your own hands as an artist. Like, it's no label's fault. It's no streaming platform's fault. It's like, you have to make it work. Like, that's the difference between you not being successful and being successful. You have to take the initiative on yourself. Like, nobody else is going to do it for you but you. And you, whether that's being too aggressive or being too laid back, you have to learn and figure that out within your journey, you know?
And then now you're in this era where you say that, I mean, this is your most successful era as an individual. You're independent now. Things are getting better year to year. You got 300K plus on IG and things are moving. I mean, you were on Sway, did a crazy, crazy freestyle, and Sway gave you the highest regards.